Hello, Freedom Nation. It's Jeff here once again with another episode of the Freedom Nation podcast. And I am excited today to interview Parker Harris. Parker is a professional mastermind facilitator and business guru, helping people and businesses kind of move themselves to that next level. He's got a very interesting story of how he got there and is recently married or in about the last year. And he's going to talk a little bit about the year-long adventure that he and his wife had. So Parker, welcome to the show, bud.
Thank you. And I hope I'm not letting anyone down in the fact that I'm not a guru. I'm a practitioner.
That's perfectly fine. I didn't know what to call you, so we'll go with that. And I totally agree with you. I'm an operator, not a policymaker. So that's what I do best. So Parker, tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get to where you're at today?
Wow, that's I mean, I think there's a long version of that and a short version of that. I think, for the sake of our time, I'll do this short version. And then if there's anything you want to drill into, we can do that. But, I'm someone that was fortunate to have two amazing parents who both worked and supported me to be educated and to learn. And I figured out that I enjoyed learning at a young age. And then I also enjoyed adding value to others at a young age. So that initially led me to having, a variety of different jobs or ways of earning money before I realized that entrepreneurship was a path that would create freedom, to the point of this podcast, Freedom Nation. Mm-hmm. And that was interesting to me as well. I appreciate the fact that in business, people do business with each other based on, people doing what they say they're going to do and having substance behind, that sale. So that attracted me at a young age. And then I iterated through, a dozen different projects and businesses by my mid-20s before I realized that bringing together other entrepreneurs and leaders and executives for a personal and professional development experience, also known as a mastermind, was something that was really authentic to me and valuable, and something I was good at doing. So that's what I've been doing for about 12 years now. And, it's been a journey that there's been a lot of ups and downs. And I think, at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is one of the most humbling experiences, because it's like a visceral place where we learn that it's not about us as the entrepreneur, that it's about the customer and what's in their best interests. And, that creates a lot of, I think, personal growth and personal evolution in how one sees the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about your business. What is it? A lot of people have masterminds. What is it that makes y'all different?
Yeah, I mean, I frankly think there's a lot of things that are called masterminds that aren't actually masterminds. A lot of different conferences and group coaching environments that get labeled a mastermind, but are really a place to sit and absorb information from a guru to or some sort of expert or coach. What a mastermind is to me, it's kind of like the Knights of the Round Table, where it's a conversation where everybody's an equal. There's no hierarchy, and we have conversations around the things that are most important to us, whether they're opportunities, challenges, ideas, ways to become better entrepreneurs, better leaders, better people. So that's what a mastermind is to me, is a space to come together and have conversations around things that are authentically relevant to us, and where people have their best, where the person that's in the hot seat, if you will, or like bringing an opportunity or a challenge, everybody else has their best interests at heart. And it's not a space to sing kumbaya and tell everyone everything's going to be okay. It's really a place to have uncomfortable conversations and be challenged. And I think that high performing, high achieving people really value that type of experience.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I laugh because I've been involved in so many masterminds over the years. And, what I've always told people when they've approached me with this, any mastermind concept, I'm like, if I'm going to be the most motivated person in the room, I don't want to be there. I want to be with a group of people that are so far ahead of me that, it forces me to have to go. And so many people pull these groups together that literally it's anybody that was willing to pay them instead of really putting together that kind of group. So talk to me a little bit about the approach. How do you guys do it? What's unique about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my first reaction is, it's a space where people can truly be vulnerable. Sometimes these different, groups where there's successful people, everybody's kind of got, their best self showing. And we really create a space for, like, that's our sacred cow, is like showing up, with vulnerability, without the mask, which I think sometimes entrepreneurship really, needs to create that, those barriers or those boundaries between, different complex stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
So that vulnerability comes to mind. We also do a lot of prep before the mastermind. So
Okay.
it's not just like, all right, like, what are we talking about today? There's a pretty sophisticated, personalized approach that involves one-on-one touch points with every person in the mastermind in
Okay.
order to figure out what is really relevant to talk about. Like, what's the high leverage topics. We also have professional facilitation. So a lot of masterminds, it's kind of like everybody's a member, and I think there's some benefit to that, but we've seen a lot of benefit in someone that's responsible for bringing everybody's best, to create some continuity between conversations and put together a certain level of thought and preparation to maximize the value, like the time that everybody is investing into that conversation. Because
Yeah.
for our member, the time piece of it is more valuable than the financial investment piece of it. And so that time needs to be honored. We also focused on holistic success. So, as an example, a member who is going to be a father soon, we'll be talking about, how to best prepare to be a father, and to, how to be the best dad that he can be. We'll also explore different topics related to health. We'll explore topics related to personal development. We bring different mentors or experts in to support those conversations from time to time as well. So as an example, when the banking crisis was happening, about a year ago, we brought in, a seasoned banker who had run multiple banks to, share what it meant to us. So we do that with different experts outside of entrepreneurship in our core focus in order to make us more successful in all areas of our life.
I love it. Yeah. So, I mean, that holistic approach too is just, also making you more than that one or two dimensional, entrepreneur that's just focused on running their business and that's it, and nothing else is going on in their life.
Well, I think to Jeff, to add on to that too, is a lot of times people, like our member will come in and they think what they want is more money, like more revenue, more profit, more customers. And I can understand that completely. What we normally see is the breakthrough that leads to more customers and more money is not always like a business strategy or tactic, but often there's something deeper underlying it that's preventing the person from solving that problem themselves. Our members are all successful, smart people. So if they know the problem, they can often solve it on their own. I think what masterminds are uniquely good at doing is helping to discover what the real problem is. Sometimes often what we see is the problem people think they have is not root cause, is not like the deeper problem. And then once people understand, our quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. So through exploring quality questions, people are able to almost hear the answer for themselves, but they just weren't asking the right question.
Yeah, exactly. Now, is that something that, especially those real vulnerable type things like that, is that something that, you might go into that facilitated session with the facilitator kind of getting things started, but is it really trying to the entire group trying to pull that out of that person who's kind of in the hot seat, or?
Yeah, absolutely. The facilitator's goal is to speak as little as possible to
Okay.
guide a conversation, and it's leveraging the brain trust and mastermind of the other successful people in the conversation, versus, again, a group coaching environment, which is, to me, an entirely different thing.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, so who is your typical, when you have somebody that, eh, let's just say, who's that avatar of the client that you bring into your groups?
Yeah, so it's an entrepreneur that's already achieved a level of success where um, they have traction. Sometimes that traction shows up in revenue. Sometimes that shows up in a certain amount of like investment earned, like money raised. So we do bootstrapped and venture backed companies. Often there's a team involved, team of, let's say, more than 5 people. So there's a complexity that gets added there, and then we also have been very successful with entrepreneurs that have sold their business within the last like 2 years or so, and they're trying
Okay.
to figure out what is next.
Hmm. Excellent. Well, you just got married about a year ago, right?
Yeah, October 2022.
Congratulations. Congrats. Well, what have you guys been doing for the last year up till yesterday?
Yeah, so yeah, right, a lot. We got back. So after living together in San Diego for many years, we decided to move everything into storage and to travel the world, living in a new city every month to see if we found home outside of San Diego.
Okay.
So it took us through 16 countries, a little over 20 cities visited, and not, doing the kind of the more traditional tourist experience, but doing like really seeking to live in the culture and experience it as a local. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was wonderful. I feel like traveling for me created a lot of like, this is the nerd. I started studying what was happening because I could feel it created neuroplasticity for me, and like
Yeah.
the ability to really evolve in a way that, staying in my comfort zone didn't allow for.
Yeah. Now, were you going places that, mostly spoke English, or were you going places that you had to learn the language too on top of it, or?
Yeah, both. So we experienced both. We spent some time in Nashville and Dallas and Cheyenne and London, and some places where English is fairly accessible, and then we kind of got off the beaten track as well and spent some time in Romania and North Macedonia and Montenegro and Bulgaria, and places like that. We spent a good amount of
Yeah.
time in Italy and Portugal and Spain and Greece and Prague, which I fell in love with. So,
Yep.
um, some places spoke English better than other places, um, but I was surprised. There's a lot of, this isn't a new idea, but how easy it was to communicate with people without speaking the language, because I think a lot of, language is done through body language and tone, and
Hmm.
so it wasn't really a challenge anywhere. And then
Yeah.
Google Translate is kind of the worst option, or the last tool in case everything else fails. But yeah, I was also surprised with, we spent 12 months traveling in a variety of different environments and cities and places and situations, and not once did we feel unsafe.
Yeah.
The world is really doing well, in my opinion, and when I'm on YouTube or watch the news, it doesn't feel like that
Yeah.
sometimes. So I'm very hopeful and optimistic for the future based on everything I experienced.
Well, the funniest thing is that we just got back in December from 2 weeks over in Europe. Went to Prague, Germany, London. We were in London twice last year, and I'm like, I feel safer there than I do in my own city sometimes. Because I mean, it's just they've got good police forces. They believe in law and order. And, I mean, sometimes we don't necessarily do that as much in our country. So it's interesting to be there. And I think for people that are thinking about, or one of their big goals or their bucket list items is to go overseas and travel, you shouldn't be scared.
Yeah, yeah, and there's never a right time to do such a thing. It's always uncomfortable, but once for us, once we started doing it, it became like, why would we stop doing it?
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things we got to just rip the band-aid off, for a lack of a better way of saying it, or just and it's amazing what's out there. I fell in love with North Macedonia, which is a country that I had never even really heard of.
Yeah.
And in North, it's a very friendly country, it's a very beautiful place, it's a very fertile place. And we can get a 3-bedroom penthouse apartment for $1,000 a month there. So it makes me, after that experience, it made me think of where else is out there that I haven't heard of. Maybe because North Macedonia is not in the European Union. It's one of the few European countries that's not in the EU. So I think there's not a lot of incentives to spread the word about it. And I think there's probably a lot of places throughout the world that are in a similar boat, that are just amazing and beautiful and friendly and have a rich culture and great food and a high quality of life, that just haven't been put on the map yet.
Well, I mean, even Prague, I mean, it's so funny. They're part of the European Union. They're not part of the monetary system. But it's so funny because they still, it's like they're the little brother to Europe. So they kind of have a little bit of a complex that way. But I love their just, I guess, entrepreneurial spirit. It's one of the coolest places I've ever seen. I mean, they get it better than anybody else. And, having been to Italy and some of the other Southern European countries, I'm like, you guys need to take a little bit of y'all don't want to let them into the European Union and into the monetary system, but they actually will figure it out better than you think they will.
Yeah, I mean, Prague was like an adult Disneyland. It's a very special place, and there's a lot of freedom in different parts of Europe. It is a very like live and let live vibe that I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Well, plus Prague, it seemed like anytime I tried to speak Czech, they wanted to speak English. Probably because my Czech is so incredibly bad, but definitely was one of the coolest places. I agree. Absolutely gorgeous place. And the good part is they were so far in and such a cultural backwater in the Eastern Bloc that the Russians didn't come in and destroy the town and make it look like 1960s architecture everywhere, which is nice.
Yeah, it's incredibly
Excellent.
beautiful. Amsterdam's like that as well. And
Yep.
It's cool to like to live a life where when I watch a movie, it's like, yeah, I've been there. I see that, I've been there, and it's different than living life through a movie or through TVs.
Well, it's fun too to we're big watchers of travel shows and stuff like that, and so it's also fun to watch the travel show, go there, and then watch the travel show again and go, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, we were there. Oh, that was terrible. Yeah, they made it seem way better than it actually was. So yeah, it's fun from that perspective. Definitely. What's new in your world? What's now that you're back in the game, or are you staying in San Diego, or did you find the place?
Yeah, I mean, San Diego is such a beautiful place. Like we're one of the things that travel did for me was, I've heard about the idea of being present for so long. So it's almost like a cliche thing to say, but for me, that adventure really allowed me to be present. And I'm still kind of at a place where I'm just enjoying the moment, enjoying where I'm at, and not putting pressure on myself to figure out what's next yet.
Yeah.
I think some of those thoughts always, kind of creep in, or, it's maybe just human nature to consider like what's next. So likely we'll spend some time here, reconnecting with family and friends before heading down to South America for a while.
Okay.
There's a lot of reasons we are interested in heading back to Europe as well. Uh, we qualify for some different visas that we could have some extended periods of time there, which is interesting. And I think, what came up for me from the journey was not forcing myself to choose like one place for forever, but go now drill into some of these places that I fell in love with for longer periods of time, 3 to 6 months, see if it really, if it was just like a romantic, month there, or if I would actually want to live there for longer periods of time. And,
Yeah.
we could potentially pick up a few flats throughout the world and just kind of split time in between them.
Sure. Yeah, I know. That's my wife and I, that's kind of our 5-year plan is, to be able to do that, where it's like, okay, you have one place that's kind of your, your roots, but you can kind of live around the world and in different places, and not always the same place. I mean, I don't necessarily have to own the property. Like you said, you can pick up a flat for, $1,000 in some places in Europe that you wouldn't think that you'd be able to. And it's a beautiful place. So.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think
Awesome.
it leads to some of those conversations too, that, around like in financial investments, where, where is money best leveraged, and how does that change in different locales? How does it stay the same in different locales? And, what's that path to true freedom?
Yeah, honestly, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. Let's jump into the fast 5 questions.
Sounds good.
All right. First question: you wake up in the morning, business is gone. You have a laptop computer, $500 in your pocket, a place to live, food and clothing. What do you do first?
So I've lost the financial assets that I had as
Yes.
well. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great question. I think there's a few different things that come to mind for me. One is I believe I could start another business similar to the one that I have with that type of, with the network that I have and with the skill set that I have. So that would probably be option one. I also think that I could, I've been recruited by members and different people to become CEO or an executive within their company. So I think I could take on a leadership role within a startup or within like a small to medium sized business,
Mm-hmm.
and do very well. Both like having a positive impact on that business as well as like the financial side of that. And worst case scenario is I could get into sales, like sales for a higher price point product or service, and probably start making multiple 6 figures pretty quickly.
Awesome. Great idea. What's the biggest business mistake you've ever made?
Yeah, just to like go back to that last one and real quick,
Scratch that reverse.
is I think like part of the journey of entrepreneurship becomes like how to self-lead, like how to self-direct,
Sure.
like how to choose priorities, how to get things done without being managed or led. And that's something that school just fundamentally does not prepare us for. School is almost the opposite, right? Where it's like, hey, here's the syllabus, here's your course schedule, here's off time, here's on time. This is how you're successful. Where business, no one's really creating that for you, and it's also a little bit different based on your business and where where you're at in that journey, what assets are in place financially, network wise. So I think one of the gifts of learning to run a business and going over that 10-year mark is being a self-directed individual. And that's so rare in this world that there's always a multi 6-figure opportunity for that person, because there's so many business owners and entrepreneurs that get to a certain point where they're looking for a plan, a succession plan, right? And there's literally no one to take over that business.
Yeah.
And it's a real problem now that I don't think enough young people are ready for that opportunity. And so certain people are going to have more, like, be able to leverage that and maximize that opportunity more than people that are just, you know, waking up Monday, dreading it, can't not wait until Friday, you know, working, but not maybe working all out, right? Because they don't have to.
Mhm.
And yeah, like, I think that's one of the gifts that the entrepreneurial journey provides, where at a certain point that person can become so valuable that they never really have to worry about what happens if everything falls apart, because
Yeah.
they can add so much value to a variety of people that the supply and demand is like off, right? There's just not enough of those people, and the
Mhm.
demand is so high for that type of person that there's really nothing to fear.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you've got the baby boomer generation that's starting to transition out of businesses they built, and like my generation coming behind, we're the smallest generation. They're the largest generation. We have the least amount of businesses. They have the most amount as a percentage of the group, and there's going to be a lot of people I think that are going to be sorely disappointed that they weren't able to transition their business because they didn't really prepare it for the future.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do, to prepare a business to, one, be sold, or to
Mhm.
run more, not autonomously, but without
Yeah,
the direct guidance and effort of the owner or principal.
absolutely. All right. Well, second question. What's your biggest business mistake?
Yeah, so I think that they're related, but for me, I had really strong ideas of what my business should look like, who we should serve, and I spent a lot of time building in the ivory tower, if you will, like in
Mm,
an isolated way, versus listening to my customers and listening to them in a way that I was actually listening, versus like, oh yeah, I hear you and this is what I want to do, right?
yeah.
um and so yeah, I think that slowed growth for many years, because I
Mm,
was like trying to do what I thought was right versus what the customers thought was right. And and maybe paradoxically on this, I also would muster in like charging too little is was like a
mm,
mistake, right? And instead of going up market, or charging, something that I felt good about, I was like, charging based on what the cheapest customer said was acceptable to them,
yeah.
and that was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a mistake a lot of us make. I mean, I've talked about that for years, when I would do coaching in areas that weren't necessarily, they were areas I was good at, but not necessarily I was the expert in. And, every time I would charge not enough and then I would deliver unbelievable value. And, it ended up being this incredible situation for the client. But for me, I'm like, okay, I'm just losing money doing this. I'm not doing it anymore. So either you
Yeah,
commit and say, "Hey, I'm going to ask more," and if they tell you no, that's okay because that's not your client.
that person might not be your customer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well said.
absolutely.
I think that's one of the hardest things, right? Is like, oh, but they're saying that it can't be more, so this is what it has to be. Versus like, oh, that's interesting. You're not my customer, right? And
Absolutely.
you know, some people are going to just ask for more and more and more for the money they provide, and some people, their time is so valuable that they're just like, hey, I just want this to be as best as it can be,
Mm,
and that's a different person.
yeah, absolutely. What's a good book that you'd recommend for our audience?
There's I feel like there's so many good books out there. It's like hard to, you know, I I think one of the hardest things about the book conversation is, what is the actual like book that would move the needle for an individual
Mm,
based on like where they're at. I think that's something I would recommend, is like for people, is to really like sharpen that saw, and instead of just reading what Elon Musk read this month,
yeah.
right? Or whoever, right? Like whatever book is making noise, is like getting really clear about the problem that is really holding someone back, and then what is the appropriate book based on that.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that AI is going to play a bigger role in that. My members and friends say that, like, they call me a book sniper for like that ability to be able to be like, hey, based on what you're going through, like, this is what's relevant to you right now. And so I think it might be a disservice for me to just like say one book, that based without knowing the individual.
Yeah.
So if someone, but I think books can provide a lot of opportunity and leverage and wisdom. So, I would ask people to almost like start building a habit or a cadence of like reflection and planning, where they like plan things out and then they reflect on what actually happened. I heard this is what Methodism is based on, like the religion Methodism, but like essentially just like writing out like what you think is going to happen, and then write out what actually happened and look at that difference and figure out what's the bottleneck. Is it discipline? Is it, bad leadership or bad management or sales, or, some sort of deeper, personal development opportunity to heal from trauma. And I think there's a lot of different elements of business, as well as elements of kind of the mindset piece that's a bit deeper, and using using this idea of like reflection and planning to start isolating like what is the real problem that we're solving for, and then sharpening the saw, if you will, to figure out what is the resource that's relevant to that, and cut out all the other noise, right?
Yeah.
Like I think our brains sometimes just get fed by YouTube videos and just different ideas that are more like intellectual masturbation, like I think is the term, like an international, like more of like something that creates an instant gratification versus actually is useful to move forward the vision.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll give you a pass on that one because you gave a perfect way of actually figuring out which is a book for you. What's a tool?
I'm so happy to provide a book.
Yeah.
Outwitting the Devil is my
favorite in your business
book.
every day that you might recommend?
I like Notion is a valuable tool for me.
Okay.
It's a software for like note taking, organization, task management. I've really been enjoying the user experience and having like one place where I can put my ideas and thoughts and organize it based on the complexity of my business and life.
Sounds similar to like a Evernote type of approach.
Yeah, I would say like I used Evernote several years ago. I think it's probably like 5 to 10 times better.
Okay.
I think Notion can really help a business scale.
Okay.
It's also good on an individual level. I think it's also good for a family. So it's, it can be whatever one makes it or wants to be, but it's something that I think more savvy entrepreneurs are using in a way that really serves them.
I like it. That's a new one. I haven't heard of it. I have to look into it. What is your definition of freedom?
For me, it goes back to like doing what I want, where I want, with who I want. Mm-hmm. That kind of like golden, an amazing amount of freedom in life, I think, can happen when we can decide who we're spending our time with, who we're building our business with, who do we actually enjoy being around, and being around that person. One of the things we work with our members on is building a success team for different areas of their life. So having a success team for their health, having a success team for their finances, having a success team for their relationship, having a success team for their business, having a success team for their personal development and mindset. And so really being able to build that out, like, is, it's something that kings were only able to do. Right. Yeah. And so to be able to do that as an entrepreneur, to do that earlier in life, I think it creates a lot of leverage. And then, having that freedom of location and freedom of time and freedom of money, it's, It's something I only achieved after I learned not like how to master not just making money, but then making that money work for me. And that's a really special place to be.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great answer. So, Parker, thank you for being on today. I appreciate you, and certainly you're just a deep thinker, and it was wonderful to have the conversation with you. If somebody's interested in learning a little bit more about what you do and all that, where's the best place to go?
Well, yeah, what I would say, whatever social media they're most active on, they can find me under Zachary Parker Harris.
Okay, perfect. Well, then, everybody, I would say reach out to him and learn a little bit more and see what he has to offer. Folks, thank you for joining us. We do these shows for you. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we pop up a show. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you are also giving us an upvote or a comment. Let us know that you're out there. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you guys back here the very next time.